Okay, this is great. We really have a great panel for you today. I've enjoyed all the panels, and certainly the speakers have been top-notch, but I'm especially excited about this panel, being a former classroom teacher and with everything the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative is working on. And we are really thrilled to have the panelists that we have, the who's who in the state of education. And we all said, the moderators all said we would let everybody read everybody's bio on the website, and we weren't going to say anything, but I just want to introduce a little bit here. And I'm going to start with Sara Tucker. She's our Chancellor of West Virginia's Higher Education Policy Commission and Community College Technical System. And she's the first person to hold both positions. And think how difficult that is. And you look at other states and they don't have that. And I think she just handles it so well. And if you know Sara at all, which I know everybody does, I think her biggest strength is her ability to work across the state and the aisle. And everybody wants to partner with her because she's open to ideas. And when she gives her word, we know she means it. So she's a joy to work with, and that's why so many wonderful things are happening. I also would like to introduce Dr. Sara Lewis-Stankus, who's right over here. And she's the newest Deputy Superintendent at the West Virginia Department of Education. And how lucky we are to have her. She has 32 years in all levels of education. She's a teacher, counselor, principal, and superintendent. So you can imagine what an asset she is for the State Department of Education and all of us. And one thing that always shines through about Sara is her passion for students and educators. We appreciate that so much in your position that's needed. Now we have our president of the Senate Education Committee and practicing fourth grade teacher. Can you imagine how difficult that is to serve in the legislature and then also have your fourth graders waiting for you? And it's just amazing. And I think she took on being Senate president after only 2 years. Is that right, Chair of the 2 years in the legislature? And that's amazing too. And I know we have a lot of other education Congress people in here, like Lloyd Jackson, who was the Senate Education President, and we all have admiration for what you're doing and building on what they did. But I think that you'd have to say that Amy took the 2023 legislative session by storm. And there's all kinds of pictures of her just with a real determined look on her face, and we appreciate so much what you did. That is phenomenal. Then we have Amber Nichols, our West Virginia State Teacher of the Year. And kindergarten teacher. And she really impresses me on so many fronts. Not only is she a practicing teacher right here in Mon County at Eastwood and our Teacher of the Year, but she is a real champion for all kinds of students. In teaching, we have this saying, all means all, that we feel like everybody's equal and they can learn, and she really emulates that. So I appreciate that so much. So we do have a wonderful panel. And I thought I'd start out by giving everybody a different question, and then we would be able to have a group question at the end. So starting with Dr. Tucker, as Chancellor, just share with us how you feel that higher education is now preparing students for careers in the energy sector, and what would you maybe see as areas of growth and improvement?
Sure. So if you have heard me speak before, you've probably heard me say this, so I apologize, but it's definitely going to go into my obituary. I believe that higher education is the way out of poverty for the vast majority of West Virginians. I just believe it with everything in my body. But I define higher education differently than I think a lot of people do. I define higher education as a continuum of learning. I define higher education as skill sets, as one-year certificates, as associate degrees, as baccalaureate degrees, as master's degrees, PhDs, MDs, all of it. That's all higher education. And when we cease to talk about higher education that way, we leave a whole sector of our K-12 students out of the conversation. And that's something that we've been working really, really hard to try to change here in West Virginia. We have one of the lowest college going rates in the country. It went up this year by a percentage point, I'll take it. We're working really, really hard on continuing to increase that. This legislative session, a really significant piece of legislation went through, creating dual enrollment pathways for our students. This is the first time the state of West Virginia has provided access to our K-12 students who otherwise couldn't afford to get dual enrollment courses. Previously, the students who were paying for dual enrollment courses were students whose families could afford it. Now think about how many people that leaves out in the state of West Virginia. Think about how many people don't have access to that kind of education and training. And when we look across the country and we look at other states that have funded dual enrollment, what we find is that our low-income students double their chances of going to college. Our first-generation students double their chances of going to college. All of the populations that we see here in West Virginia that we know, if we're going to follow the main speaker's chart of bringing folks up from the middle class, if we want to increase the middle class here in West Virginia, we have to find ways to give our high school students access to higher education. And that means a whole lot of things for a whole lot of different people. And we have to be able to talk about it like that. We have kids that aren't going to be able to walk into an associate's degree program. We have kids that aren't going to be able to walk into a bachelor's degree program. We have people for whom a 12 credit hour CNC machining program is going to be their foot in the door. And then once they're finished with that and they make their income, they can go on and get a machinist operator position. And then they can go on to get their machinist technology position. The same thing is true for nurses. The same thing is true for teachers. The same thing is true for all of these pathways. But we have to create those pathways for our students. We have to make it obvious to them. We have to tell them that any entry point is valid. And then, more importantly, we have to show them that there's a job at the end. One of the most successful campaigns I have ever seen to get students into college was between Bridge Valley and Toyota. And they went to Riverside High School. Riverside, there's one way in and one way out, that's it. And there are 2 billboards on either side. And Toyota put 2 giant billboards on either side of that entry and exit that said, you want to work for Toyota? Go to Bridge Valley's AMT program. Bridge Valley could sing to the high heavens, AMT, AMT, what does that even mean? No one knows what that means, but they do know what Toyota means. They do know what a healthy living wage for their families mean. They do know what health insurance means. They do know what benefits mean, and that's what that program provides to those students. And so in addition to creating this continuum, in addition to thinking about these pathways, in addition to thinking about different sectors like energy or healthcare or IT, we have to get employers to stand with us and say, and these are the jobs that you'll take. These are the jobs that are available. I talk with high school students all the time in West Virginia. And you've got those kids that are the Zoomers, right? The ones that are always going to do great. No matter what you put in front of them, they're going to do great. It's the other group of kids that we need to get to. And that group of kids doesn't believe that there are jobs here. But you have heard from all these companies today that there are jobs here. And somehow we have to, as higher ed, as a business community, as government, as whatever you want to call us, we have to get that message translated to students, because we can have the best programs in the world. And without the students in them, you're not going to get the workforce that you need. And so that's what we're trying to change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, the other Sara, the equal Sara, I should say other. You're leading the K-12. You, along with David Roach and Michelle Blatter, you're the leadership team. And you think about students knowing about what was talked about today, all these different people. You know, what would be your answer to making sure that all students in K-12 know about the careers available in the energy sector, like we've heard, and beyond?
Well, thank you, Chancellor, for bringing those points forward, because I could not agree more to your points that we really have to look at ways to attract all students and open up the idea that it's not one way, it's not a 4-year college degree that equates to success, that it can be other, and especially hearing today the speakers, the technical fields, the STEM, the STEAM, those fields that are really growing. That happens in career technical, and that happens in our high school. And our current superintendent, Superintendent Roach, he believes in career tech, and he wants to see it at the middle school level, and even for our elementary, looking at technical fields that are possibilities. And right now, we're preparing students for careers that we don't even know exist, and things that we heard about today. It's so exciting. We want to really instill that same enthusiasm in our children, in our students, to give them the hope and let them know that they can do these things, that those careers are possibilities. And I visited the Toyota plant, so thank you for bringing up the Toyota 4T program. Toyota actually hired a teacher in their plant, and those high school students go to that plant 3 days a week and work alongside of an industry person. What a powerful model to have students alongside of business and industry. And I think more of that in apprenticeship, internship opportunity, that's what we're looking to really increase. And I love that Brad Smith was talking about the design model, because that's just exactly what we need to do in K-12. Look at our problems, what do we need to solve, and then really help develop our students as critical thinkers, as team workers, and all of us are really competing for the same type of employee. We want someone who can work as a team member. We want someone who is a problem solver and who can work together to help accomplish those goals. So.
Thank you. Now, Amy, as chair of the Senate Ed, what did you all do this session, and will you plan to do later to support both the Department of Ed, K-12, and higher ed and beyond?
I think possibly the most important piece of legislation we passed dealing with K-12 was House Bill 3035, which was focusing a lot on K-3 literacy and numeracy. It really will make a huge difference, and I can already feel my kindergarten teacher over here. She's nodding so hard like that, I can feel it. And I know a lot of people in the audience here probably are like, what in the world are you even talking about? Because you don't speak the educational language, and you really don't know. But if you look at states such as Mississippi and North Carolina and Florida who have passed similar legislation, and they have seen tremendous growth. And I know as a teacher, I don't like to focus solely on assessment test scores, those general summative assessment test scores at the end of the year. That's not the only thing I focus on to see if my students are productive or if they are, I guess you would say, proficient. But unfortunately, that is something that we have to look at. And when you look at those other states, they have seen tremendous growth when they have implemented legislation just like what we just passed this year. And that's what I'm anxious to see what happens with West Virginia students. It's going to take 4 or 5 years before we see anything, but we've got to be patient. When we want to see something good, we've got to be patient. And then what the Chancellor mentioned about the dual enrollment credits, that is going to make a huge difference in the education of our students in K-12. I teach at a small school. We have 160 kids pre-K through 6th grade. And many of them come from households of family members who've never gone to college. So a lot of them don't even look that far in the future. They're in 4th grade. They're 10 years old. I can usually tell at this point in their lives if they are looking at going into some form of higher ed, or where their mentality is and how hard I need to push them, if they're already there, or if I need to really give them a push to let them know they can do it. And so giving them the opportunities in high school to where they could take those courses and it can give them a step in the door to where they feel like, okay, I can do this. I already have some of it under my belt. I can continue this when I graduate. So those are 2 pieces of legislation that I feel were really, really important for the success of our students.
Game changers, really.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yes.
Great, thanks. Amber,
Yes.
being a kindergarten teacher, you're really at the grassroots of this. And when you're listening to all these wonderful speakers that we have, and particularly the ones like industry level, what are you thinking about? They're talking about, of course, we know we need the foundational skills, and we're going to talk about that, all of us, later. But what about this, like the design thinking, the teamwork, the critical thinking? How do you infuse that in students at a young age like that?
Sure, well, everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten, right? Isn't that what they told me? So as an early childhood educator, I just feel this immense and beautiful responsibility to usher a child in their educational journey and to guide their parents as well. In the state of West Virginia, our goal in education is to get students college ready, career ready, or military ready, and that's our job. No pressure, right? No pressure for us at all. So the first thing that we really need to do is to build those social and emotional learning skills. I have 23 amazing, beautiful, wonderful, rambunctious 5-year-olds in my class, and I look at them as 23 seeds that I get to plant and cultivate and grow through the year. What you have to realize is that I'm not growing one plant, I am growing an entire forest, a forest of needs. Our students are coming to us with a multitude of needs, and getting those social and emotional learning skills up to par is definitely our #1 goal. I think the thing that surprised me the most coming back from the pandemic was that our students didn't know how to play. I've been doing this for 21 years, and play is something I have researched and studied. It's the most natural and basic instinct that we have as children, and our kids are coming to us not knowing how to play. So I had to instruct students on the art of play. It's how we communicate, it's how we explore, it's how we learn. And so I think that building that base of social and emotional learning skills has to be first. But on top of that, we have to give our students rigorous academic goals. And I think the thing that I'm the most excited about with this legislation and under the department's leadership, we are rolling out this Ready, Read, Write campaign, and I think we have a really awesome commercial that we could show you.
Okay.
A child who cannot read becomes an adult who struggles for success. That's why the West Virginia Department of Education has launched Ready, Read, Write West Virginia to improve literacy for all children. This initiative uses the science of reading to help students succeed. Teachers cannot do this alone. Families, communities, and organizations all have important roles to play. Learn how you can get involved at readread.com. Aren't they adorable?
Yeah.
So reading,
That's really their class.
Yes.
Those are the kids.
Reading is really the gift that we can give our students, and I think that's the thing that I love the most about this campaign is the conversation piece that we're having as educators. But I think the other thing that I love the most about it is that it talks about this strong sense of community and how we all have to be there for our students. I mean, there is nothing more West Virginia than that, right? This sense of community and how we can really help build our students. I'm a Head Start kid. I'm a child of poverty. I grew up in Doddridge County, West Virginia. I am a proud West Virginian, and I have had loving adults pour into my life since I was 3 years old. And now I'm the Teacher of the Year, and I'm working on my doctorate, and I have all these cool things, but it's because of those people that have poured into my life. And I think, we talk about education and business and community partnerships. I mean, that's the beauty of West Virginia. I promise, Amy and I can attest that, and Dr. Stankus as well, there are teachers that are busting their tails all over the state of West Virginia to ensure that we're building strong kids for West Virginia. And I think your part is that you can help us to build a strong West Virginia for our kids.
Thank you so much. Imagine how lucky a child is to be part of your force.
Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, Dr. Tucker, we've been talking about, soft skills and brainstorming and things like that, but what kind of content and foundational skills do you feel that students need for these energy careers? And I know lots of times students find out about these careers when they're juniors and seniors, and it's a little too late to get those foundational courses in or whatever. So talk to us a little bit, if you will, about that.
And we know for any of the technical skilled jobs that are in the state, people need to know math. Mm-hmm. They need to know math. And we have to communicate that to kids earlier. Math is important. It's really, really important. And it may look a little bit different for some of our students than it does for others. It doesn't mean that we all have to be college Algebra 1 ready. That's what a STEM student needs. That's not necessarily what every student needs. Some need statistics, some need other versions of math that can be applied, but math in general is incredibly important. And we have to make sure that our students have those skills and that we're not letting them escape and duck out of those courses. People often think that English and writing isn't important. But if you are trying to communicate from a rig somewhere to the home base and troubleshoot some problem that's happening that you're seeing, and you're incapable of communicating the information that you're seeing in front of you, you're incapable of writing it, then you're incapable of doing your job. And so we have to keep and continue to be vigilant, exactly what they're talking about with the skills in K through 3, making sure that all of our students are literate, making sure that all of our students have strong math skills so that they're able to be successful at anything that they want to do. Without that, you're not going to be successful. I don't care if you try to go to college or if you try to go to the workforce. Work at Wendy's, you still have to be able to work a cashier, right? You still have to be able to do these basic things, and we have to be able to teach our students how to do that.
Thank you. I agree. Dr. Stankus, when you hear what Sara had to say, and then you all talking about the new Ready, Read, Write, how are you ensuring that all students have these foundational skills? What are you doing? Like, what are some of the specifics of the program?
Sure. So we are focused, when Superintendent Roach came on board in August of this past year, he was very keenly focused on getting back to the basics. That is reading, writing, and numeracy. So those are our top priorities. And we know everything else can grow out of those content areas. And when you talk to teachers, they're doing that in the elementary classroom. They're focused on the Ready, Read, Write, the premises of Ready, Read, Write, which is the science of reading, looking at the scientific method by which to teach children reading, how to read. And so that's one of the things we're doing, investing in our teachers and training them, those instructional practice that are really scientifically based and research based and proven effective. So that's one of the things we're doing. We know that all success comes from people. We can come up with the greatest programs and the greatest ideas, but truly it's always people who create success. And so by investing in professional development and educating our practitioners, that's one of the ways that we can invest in our children. And our board is 100% supportive of that initiative. And I like what the panels have said today. Really and truly, this is an ecosystem. It's something that's bigger than just the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. And we know that it's going to take families reading to their children at night. It's going to take grandma and grandpa taking the children to different places and giving them those experiences. All of us, business and industry, coming alongside of K-12 and higher ed to make this happen. It's not something that just one of us can do alone.
Perfect, that's right.
Thanks.
I want to ask the audience a question because I've heard a lot of this today. So many people that were up here today were talking about the importance of education. How many of you could say that you had at least one teacher that brought you to where you are today? Thank you very much. I didn't see a hand that didn't go up. So I want to ask Amy, as a legislator and a fourth grade teacher, what can the legislators do to elevate the teaching profession so that, the response that we just saw today is put in action?
There are so many people with so many ideas of how to help. And I don't think there's one good answer, just one solid answer. I think we need to really open our minds to exploring different options. A lot of times we hear teachers mention that if we invite other people into the profession to get their license and they don't have a teaching degree, that's degrading to the profession. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think I have seen some of the best teachers that I've seen have been Sunday school teachers without any teaching license whatsoever. And I've seen some teachers with a license who maybe aren't the greatest, So I think that it does come down to the individual person. And I think as legislators, keeping our minds open and talking with people such as the Department of Education, other teachers, talking to business leaders and industry leaders about what are you expecting and what do we need to be able to do to make sure that we have a successful education system is just communication. I mean, communication is key to everything. Communicating with each other, communicating with everybody about what we're looking for and what we need. I think we had a couple of ideas, a couple of bills this past session that would allow people with different types of degrees to become teachers. I think there was one that explored the idea of allowing assistant teachers to go onto a path of earning their license, getting their teaching license. And, and I think that we need to start exploring those. Not only that, I think we also need to look at our high school students, getting them into classrooms and school buildings, such as with a co-op program or something. 11th and 12th graders who are interested possibly in being educators or just have an interest in children, and realize, I don't know what I want to do, but I really like kids. Send them to an elementary school for half the day and let them go in the classroom, let them volunteer, and let them be a helper to the teacher. And that could actually foster that love for education to where they come out of high school and they say, you know what, I'm going to be an educator. And that's what we really need to do. We need to capture people really, really quickly, and we just need to keep our eyes open for that, because it's not just, I'm a teacher, and I happen to have a different perspective than a lot of legislators because I'm in the classroom and I can see things that are needed, but people from the outside need to look and share their ideas as well, and I think that's really important to make sure we're listening. We're listening and we're thinking, give me an idea, because I don't know all the answers. If I ever tell you that I have all the answers, then you need to run the other way, because I'm not telling the truth. I think that's the way with any legislator. If they ever say they have all the answers, that is an absolute lie, because none of us know everything. So just listening to people and making sure that we open our minds to all the ideas that are possible out there, I think is what we need to do. That's the easiest thing to do, I think, honestly.
That's great. And I just want to piggyback on that. What do you think about, often anybody, whether they're a teacher or whatever career they're in, you always want to feel like you're part of something greater. You're working together. And I know for myself as a teacher that those opportunities to be a teacher leader were really special and kept me in the classroom 24 years. So do you see that as some way to elevate, or are there things we can do to make sure that?
I think that's a good idea because a lot of times as a teacher you can feel like you're stuck in a rut, and I'm spinning my wheels and I'm still doing the same thing over and over, but your product is changing every year. For instance, you don't have the same types of kids every single year, and those students change. And a lot of times teachers do feel like, well, I'm in a rut, maybe if I could get up to like a leadership or a mentor type of activity or type of program, then that may possibly help elevate. I think that's a good idea.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Amber, when you think about, being a kindergarten teacher and that kind of thing, and I know you teach career readiness in your classroom, even though you have all those foundational skills, and we talked about the soft skills you're responsible for. But do you feel as a teacher that you're aware of these careers we heard about today? Because I know I'm not.
I definitely would say no, which is okay, right? Learning is always a good thing. No, but I think opportunities like this are great, and I will definitely be taking this back and sharing it on all my social media platforms and talking to other teachers as well. I mean, that's how we learn. We learn from each other. So I think it's important that we keep sharing these opportunities, and I encourage all of you to make connections with local school boards in your area and get that information out there. We learn, our kids learn by exposure, and we have to bring companies like yourselves and business leaders like yourselves into our classrooms. That's how we learn. We're planting those seeds, and we don't know which seed is going to grow and take off with what information, but the more exposure we can bring in for teachers and for students together is what we need to do.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative is starting a speakers bureau, and you might have seen the cards out there, and had so many of you, come up and say, I don't usually do these kinds of things, but I would come into a classroom. So that's really great. And I know our board chair, Scott Rotrack, is a champion of this, and he's always pushing me, as well as Provost Reed. Let's get this on the road, so we could do that. Thank you. Okay, Sara Tucker. What opportunities are there available right now for high school students or even recent graduates in terms of internship or apprenticeship?
There are all of the opportunities. I mean, we really are in this sort of amazing situation right now in West Virginia. I think I heard someone say recently that it used to be that we had all these people and we had no jobs. And now we have all these jobs and not enough people. And so really the sky's the limit for the folks that we have and for the folks that we want to bring in. we have every opportunity available for them. For the first time, we have dual enrollment opportunities available for them, thanks to the legislature. And that's a huge deal, as we've talked about before. For the first time, the trades and higher ed are really talking and trying to figure out a way that we can work through pathways so that we can make sure that when students are finishing with their apprenticeship, they finish with an associate's degree too. Because it's important to the trades and it's important to us. We're finding companies that have historically hired students with skill sets are coming back to colleges and saying, I need you to retrain these people, and I want all of this additional information that our students can have, and we're providing that additional education and training. We have universities that really, for the first time, are looking at exactly what do we need to do to make sure that our students are staying here, are successful here, are getting jobs here, are doing what they need to do. You heard the two university presidents on the stage just before us and how committed they are to doing that. That's a seismic shift in higher education that has happened in the state over the course of the past 5 to 7 years. And it's a really, really, really big deal. And then the other opportunity that I think our higher education institutions have, and I don't want to underscore this, and I do feel like it's, we talk about it, but I'm not sure people really understand it. For the first time this year, the legislature allocated what amounts to about $209 million for deferred maintenance for higher ed. I'm going to say this. I believe it to be true. If it's not true, do not fact check me. I believe that that is the largest investment in deferred maintenance that the state of West Virginia has ever made. Why do we care? Because you know what happens when colleges have leaky roofs and leaky windows? They raise tuition, because that's what has to happen in order for them to pay for it. Because you know what funders don't do? They don't put money aside for deferred maintenance because it's not sexy, right? Nobody wants to be like, here's my name on this windowsill. It's not great. So the legislature has recognized that these are our state's buildings and that we have significant infrastructure needs. And they have made a huge commitment to help meet those needs. What that means for our students is that our institutions no longer have to invest in leaky roofs and leaky windows. Our institutions can invest in student services and career services. They can keep their tuition lower. They can do all of the things that we know our institutions are really, really good at doing. And that's another opportunity that has been provided that I don't think people understand. I don't think we'll get the attention that it needs, but it's a huge, huge, huge commitment from the state.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Stankus, thinking about, we all know as teachers and everybody in this room knows that we need to make learning real world. What programs or policies does the Department of Ed have that really exemplify real world learning?
Well, 50,000 students participated in a CTE course last year in the 21-22 school year. 7,000 of those students graduated from what we call a completer. That means they finished 4 CTE courses. 7,000 of those students finished as a completer. And of those 7,000, 60% of those students scored higher on their NOCTI test, which means that they have at least a 3.0 GPA. They have a 95% attendance rate, because that's one thing the workforce is looking for. They want students to come to work. And they passed at least 2 drug tests. We test our students in the simulated workplace. And they have a minimum industry certification. So we're scoring higher than the national average on our NOCTI. And right now in our state, we're offering 65 unique industry programs in all we have 121 high schools that offer those programs, including our 22 career technical schools, and we have 7 multi-county programs. So we're really looking, and all of these programs align with industry. Right now, Superintendent Roach, again, insisted on opening or creating what he called the Office of Educational Innovation. That's an office that we can be creative. We can bring what industry says, hey, I need this program. We can be responsive to business and industry. Those are some things that we're doing. But the other thing we're doing in the middle school, at the middle school level, right now we have 2 pilot middle schools, one in Fayette and one in Calhoun. These schools have gone fully CTE across the board. We're calling those empowerment schools. Those schools have actually mapped their community, what we call asset mapping. So they're looking at the community, what does the community need? And the schools then are training and bringing business into those schools. This is taking off. We're doing it in 2 pilots, but so many of the counties have already said, hey, we want to try this. And that's really, really exciting. Other things like the STEAM TAC, where we're working with WVU, and that team is going into the school and bringing STEAM and STEM activities with experts. We're doing so many things that, again, align with what business and industry are asking for.
That's amazing. That's a great menu of items. And speaking of STEAM Technical Assistance Center, you may have seen a wonderful blonde taking your picture, Jennifer Schwartzbaker. Is she still with us? There she is. Former State Teacher of the Year, who is leading the STEAM TAC. So thank you. Amy, I want to give you a chance, too, to talk about in your 4th grade classroom how you partner with business and community, to show students about careers and also to get them involved in a meaningful way.
Well, in my 4th grade, I teach in Mason County. Mason County is recently, we have welcomed new corps. And I see Mr. Ferris already left me, and I was going to give him a little props here, but we have welcomed new corps as one of the larger new industries, new businesses that we've welcomed into Mason County. And Mason County's in the point where we have a lot of businesses coming in. We're really lucky. Every time I go into a meeting in the legislature, and Senator Clements will vouch for me here, somebody will say, we need to talk about this, there's a business coming, and I'll say, is it Mason County? Because I feel like it's just our time. So, as a 4th grade teacher, I think it's really, really important that we make sure. I think in general, we're really, really bad in West Virginia. We're getting better. We're really bad about waiting for things to come to us. We'll just wait a little bit instead of going after it ourselves. And I think as a teacher in the classroom, it's important for me not to wait for a business to contact my school or my classroom and say, how can I help? But rather to contact them and say, hey, I would like you to come in and talk to my students about this, or we could use some help in this aspect from your company. I think reaching out to them, because a lot of businesses don't really understand that maybe they can come in or understand how to get involved, or that we even want them involved, so, because that's not where their mindset is a lot of times, especially at an elementary level. In high schools, of course, they're looking for prospective employees, so they're going to reach out to those high schools. But at an elementary level, it's really important too, because you want to get those kids really excited about things that are in the community, and you want to get them excited about jobs or opportunities that they could have, and you want those businesses to come in. So I like to reach out. We have little job fairs, even for elementary schools, or career day, where we bring in different types of businesses and different types of people to talk to students about future careers and things that they might be interested in. And I think as a teacher, that's really important to do, because you need to expose children at an early age. Amber teaches kindergarten, and some kindergartners, I have a kindergartner, she right now wants to be a dog. She's still at times 50% of her life she lives as a puppy, and I'm just like, okay, you're 6, and she wants to be a vet. So we take her and I expose her. I have a friend who is a veterinarian. I'm not kidding, Scott. I wish I was. We thought she would outgrow it, but she has not yet. I'm still crossing my fingers. But so we have a friend who's a veterinarian, and exposing her to his practice and things that he does is really important, because it fosters that. It fosters that interest, in what she wants to do as a 6-year-old. And you take that love of puppies and turn it into a career, right? So making sure you can see your students and what they're really interested in, and invite people into your classroom to talk to them about that. I think it's so important, and I try to do that. I know my small school tries to do that, and I think schools across the state actually do try to do that. We just need to focus a little more in elementary.
Right,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been the focus, you know.
Yes.
We've done even well going up to middle school, but we still need the elementary. So thank
Absolutely,
you.
yeah. I think it's important.
Amber, put on your hat as Teacher of the Year, and I'm sure you have your ear to the ground. And what are you hearing out there from teachers and students? Tell us some of the bright spots or.
I just think it's such a great time to be an educator. I really, truly do. There are so many wonderful things that are happening in West Virginia in education and in the business world. I really get giddy. I'm so excited. It's such a good time to be an educator. And I feel that we're starting to feel that ripple out. Our kids deserve the best of us, and now's the time. I really feel like we're at a great spot. We've got a great Senate chair for us that's leading all of these wonderful things for us. The K to 3. I mean, if I could do a back handspring right here, I would. I'm just thrilled that we're going to have more teaching assistants, or our focus on literacy. Like, this is such a pivotal time to be an educator that I just see us taking off and soaring.
And you feel that others feel the same way?
I do. I think it's starting to ripple. I really do.
Boy, that's a turnaround. That's
Yes,
so great.
I know, it's time,
That's
it's time.
Great, thank you. Well, I have one last question, and we'll all answer the same one. You might not ever have an opportunity to be in the room with this wonderful mix of people. So this is the call to action to industry and community leaders related to, preparing students for the workforce, not just energy. What do we ask of them? Starting with Sara.
I think my ask is sort of what I led off with, which is to stop talking about higher ed as if it was this didactic thing. It's not. It's a continuum. It's all post-secondary education and training. And there are starting points and there are stopping points, and there are wonderful things that can come from every single level and every single aspect of that training. And we need to be communicating that to our students. When our students hear things like, you don't need to go to college, that also means you don't need to go to community and technical college. When they hear things like you don't need to go to college, that also means that they don't need to go on to a baccalaureate degree in order to be successful, become an entrepreneur, or get that business degree that they want. We have to start talking about that continuum, and we have to let them know that it's available for them. We have to let them know that we're here for them. We have to let them know that in West Virginia it is affordable. And if we as higher education institutions are not doing our job in making sure that those lines are open for our students, then I need to know about it. I need to know about it. You need to come to me and tell me, and we'll work on it. Because right now we have a crop of presidents, we have a crop of chief academic affairs officers who want to work on this. They want to make this better. They want to do a better job. And so we can work together and make those things happen. Now, I don't know that we have been able, as a higher education system, to do some of the things that we were able to do this year. We were able to do them this year because we're working together now. We're able to do them this year because we sat down a few years ago and made a very strategic decision to work together. And as a result of working together, we are all doing better. And what that has also meant is that we are more willing to hear criticism of things that we're doing. We're more willing to fix things that are problematic. And we're more willing to look at ourselves introspectively and say, what can we do better and how can we fix it? So we want to fix those things for all of you. And if you have those problems, you need to come to us. You need to talk to us about what those are. But we have to start communicating to our students that they need some form of education and training after they graduate from high school. Every statistic in the world shows you that. They need something, and we have to be there to help them get those opportunities.
That's wonderful. Sara?
She is one.
I know she is, what I tell you.
I agree. I think now is our time. We're stronger together than we are alone, and we need each other. I think in this room, I'm just so excited about the possibilities, and really investing in our people and our children and our workforce, our future workforce. It's about economics. It's about giving our children choices. And alongside of the Chancellor, I think that love of learning, that love of lifelong learning, we talk about the 3 E's in education: employment, enlistment, or enrollment, I want to add one more,
Okay.
entrepreneurship.
Very good.
Okay? And talk to our students about if you want to do this that's never been done before in your family, you can. You can be innovative. You can create, look at the problems that we have here in West Virginia and innovate. So I think all of us are stronger together. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I like that new E. I thought you were quizzing us. I was getting worried about that. That was great. Okay, Amy.
I'll add an extra E. I'm just kidding. I think it's really important that, as community leaders and business leaders, that you reach out to the school districts that you are close to and see what you can do to help. Make sure that they know that you're there as a member of the community to help out in whatever way. And you never know how big of a difference that you can make in that. I'll share a real quick story. And it doesn't matter how small it is or how great it is. I'm going to share a real quick story about a former student of mine who came from a family, generational, living off the system. She lived with a grandmother who there were 3 trailers in their area. There were about 12 kids. We didn't know who lived in which trailer, but we knew grandmother took care of all of them pretty much. And there was another teacher and myself and a few others that would pick the kids up every once in a while, take them somewhere, take them to Sunday school, or take them somewhere. You pull in the driveway, and you never knew if you'd have 2 kids hop in the car, or 6 kids hop in the car, or however many there were. But we wanted to expose them to things. And I had one little girl who she had never gone to Taco Bell, and she really loved it. So we started going to Taco Bell a lot, and she went from, I'm just going to sit on the couch and collect a check, to I'll work at Taco Bell one day. And she had a learning disorder, so math was hard for her. So I started in the classroom getting menus from Taco Bell and having her do math by coming up with different meals, and she would have to calculate the change and things like that. And she went from wanting to work at Taco Bell to the day we went to Taco Bell, and there was a manager there who took her back in the kitchen and let her kind of take a tour and gave her some behind the scenes things, and to now, the last time I spoke with her, she wanted to be a manager or own her own Taco Bell. And what does this have to do with you guys is the fact that one manager, who I think was a manager owner, took the time to talk to her and say, well, this is, you're interested in this is what we could do, this is what I do, this is a possibility. And she shifted her mindset from, this is what I'm used to, this is what my family has always done. Nobody in my family's gone to college. They always had babies at 16. If they made it to 16 without a baby, it was a surprise. And that's an unfortunate situation, but it's the reality for a lot of our students in West Virginia. And she now is in high school, and she still wants to manage or own a Taco Bell, but it's all because of exposure. And this one manager owner took the time to talk to her about her experiences and what she does, and it has given her a little bit of something to set her sights on. And many people might think, well, managing a Taco Bell, she could set her sights higher. But for this girl, that was a high sight. That was something that she came from basically nobody in her family even having a job to, I want to do this. And I think that as business leaders and as people who are involved in the community period, we need to make sure that we're reaching out to kids at a young age, going into the classrooms, going into the school, even if it's just reading a story, going into a classroom and reading aloud, that makes a huge impact on little ones. And just taking them, saying, I'm going to provide the money for a bus to bring you to a tour of our facility or something like that, just to open their eyes to what's around them can make a huge difference. And I think the smallest things make the biggest difference, and a lot of times we forget that. But if you just keep that in mind, any little thing you do can help.
Thank you.
Can I ditto everything she just said? She stole all my answers. Make your part of your community great. That's what we talk about in kindergarten. Do the best with what you have in your own little area. I think that's what it's all about. I love the fact that she talked about read alouds. Contact a teacher. There is no teacher in the state of West Virginia that is going to turn down someone coming into their class and doing a read aloud. We won't. We would love that. Come into the classroom. I think that's the most important thing. Exposure to show our kids, what's beyond in their life, what their life could be. Because, like we talk about, some of our kids don't have the opportunities to see certain businesses, or that CTE is an actual thing in elementary schools. We need to expose our kids. So whatever you can do to make your own little corner great will definitely help our students.
Thank you, and we're out of time for questions, but if anybody has questions for anybody or all of them, if you'd submit them to us, we'd be sure to get them to you and respond by email or whatever.
Yes.
But I want to ask the audience, when you look at who's leading education in West Virginia, do you feel better about it? Me too. Phenomenal. But we have 2 speakers, maybe 3, that said education is the #1 factor that will give us this workforce we need. So the importance is there, the gauntlet's out, and you all are up to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Great job.